In the Canvas course, you're going to find a student-paced version of this slideshow. You're also going to see a preview one as well, so that way if for some reason the code changes, you'll still have access to it in the preview mode. But what you're going to be taking a peek at today are the examples for impacts of computing, really kind of getting an idea of what it looks like in action. We're really going to break down each of those standards within the subconcept areas and really take a peek at how they can look in your classroom. This is, again, not the only way you can do these standards. It's just a way for us to start to have those conversations and to explore what it could look like. So this presentation is often used in person, but I will explain what you could do for some of these activities as we go through. Just to kind of get you going again, we're going to be talking about the subconcept areas of society, ethics, accessibility, and career paths. The standards on this page, you're going to have a copy of this as well, is going to have a placement activity that you're welcome to kind of break down and explore. The impacts of computing standards are going to be listed at the top in a K-12 alignment, so you can see the standards all on one sheet. You can then pull out the nouns and the verbs, decide to put the standard from K-12 into your own words, kind of like the clarifying statement would do or an anchor standard might do. And then you can start to think about, as you're going through the different examples of how they could look for your grade band, think about the prior skills that might be needed and the anticipated pitfalls. So this will be in your resources as well if you'd like to take a moment and do these types of activities either for yourself or with your team. So we talked already about society being the first concept area, but I'm going to break down what that actually means when we're talking about it in the classroom. We're really thinking about equity. We're thinking about the ease of communication. We're thinking about the laws. And we have to think about the fact that we are in the fourth industrial revolution currently. And this is the connected revolution where we have a lot of artificial intelligence. We have the ability to contact anyone around the world. We have ways to connect. We have autonomous vehicles. We have nanotechnology, the Internet of Things. All of those things are what we're talking about when we're talking about society. So over the two standards that are in the strand, these are the things that we're really thinking about. If you're unsure what the Internet of Things are, I'm giving you a description here, and there's a link to an article that's going to explain it further. But really, we're talking about any kind of network of objects that have some sort of sensors, some software, some technology, a way to connect or exchange data, and the way things run over the Internet. Right now, there's more than 7 billion connected Internet of Things devices, and they're saying that that number is going to completely increase over the next few years. Right now in our current job market, there are three different types of jobs. We have white collar jobs, which are your typical office jobs, typically people that have had some sort of formal education, like a bachelor's degree would have a white collar job. Blue collar jobs tend to be your out of high school labor jobs. There is usually a standard wage, particularly usually an hourly wage. But there's also new collar jobs. These are ones that are students that are currently in high school or just graduated from high school are starting this untraditional or non-traditional way of finding these jobs. A lot of times it's through entrepreneurship, projects that they've worked on. They've learned a skill or a talent either on the internet or on the job to explore new things that there are or new jobs that are available. So typically you only need a high school diploma, but you tend to have a much higher starting wage than other jobs that have higher wages than your blue collar jobs. So let's take a look at the impacts of society. So on this screen, you're going to see that there is a quote here, but it is in another language. And we also have an image here that, the type is pretty small on it. But there's ways that we can find out this information and understand what's on the page. On your screen and on my screen, there's this little book with a little audio button on it. And when I click on it, it switches over my Nearpod into Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader is not just for Nearpod. It is something that is on, it's from Microsoft, and it's embedded in many programs. So what it will do is it'll then read the screen to you. So if I hit the play button, it would read it in the language that it is. But if I click on the book, I'm able to choose a language and have it convert over to whatever language it is that I speak. So I'm going to change it over to English, and I'm going to change that by the document. And all of a sudden now we can read this much better, or at least in the language we're used to. You can change the text. There are options here. There's also some grammar options, and there's a picture dictionary and a line focus to really help any of those that need or maybe have a digital or visual need. So play around with it, check it out. You can pause the video for a moment if you've never seen it, but this is what we're talking about with the impact of society, that having these types of accessibility tools can change the way we do different things. As far as the video or the picture rather, if I put this into Google Keep, for example, it will take all of the text that's on here and make it fully editable and make it larger so I can actually read it. So there's different ways you can do it, and that's what we're talking about, is the impact will help certain things. Activities you can do, there are GPS activities. You can look at different inventions over time. This article, if you click on it, will actually take you to an article about Victorians that thought it was dangerous to ride on fast moving trains. So you can talk about some of the fears that might come with newer technologies, so you can have those types of conversations. You can also look at articles such as this one. This article happens to be about the Inuit that have adapted based on climate change through an app. So it's a great conversation starter, reading comprehension activity. It could be something that you assign in a social studies class or in a science class or in an English class as you're thinking about the topics that are computer science, but also topics you talk about in your class. This certainly could be an app development. You can use a program, say like MadLearn, where you can create your own apps, and maybe you can design an app that can help with something that's a problem in your town. I'm not going to play the videos, but just know that they're here. The first video here is going to describe what an algorithm is and how machine learning works. It can be found on code.org, so all of these videos are accessible from that website. You can also do the lessons that you have on Common Sense Education. If you have the Nearpod 21st Century Skills package, you have these already embedded into your Nearpod. So there's lots of different activities that you can do to talk about those impacts of society. Now we're going to talk about ethics. And ethics is really thinking about whether or not what we're designing is okay. And if you're looking for a really great read to understand the concepts here, I recommend this book, Ethics in the Digital World by Kristen Matson. It really gives you real life examples of what's happening in our current world and how we can bring it into our classroom. So if you're looking for ways to have discussions, to figure out how we can tie it into our social studies class or our English class, this was a great resource for you. The other thing that we can take a peek at is thinking about movies like The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and think about the things that are related to how the technology has impacted, our attachment to our phones, or how often we'll sit and scroll for hours. So you can have those conversations, watch videos such as this one to kind of have those conversations. You can also take a look at videos that showcase how different technologies that have been built, how they're making an impact on populations within our society. What is good for one person may not be for another, and we have to think about that as we're thinking about our design. We could look at articles such as this one about Alexa reading our moods. This could be a great debate to have in your classroom. It could be something where you have the students think about what they're giving away when they use technology versus what they're gaining, and maybe do a pros and cons type of activity. There are things like this podcast called Should This Exist? That's going to ask some of those big ethical questions. So you could bring one of these maybe into a high school class, have the students listen to it, and then maybe have some conversations based on what they learned. Again, I'm not going to play the video, but there's another video about what is artificial intelligence and thinking about algorithms and how it affects our society. You can also show your students this fabulous video about artificial intelligence and the facial recognition software and the flaws that we have in that software. So that is available to you on this slide deck to take a peek at as well. This video is talking about how Google search works. So it's a great one to show if your students aren't sure how search works, and you can talk about safe searches and how to do searches. But it's a really interesting way because it explains how Google actually does their search. And then when we get to accessibility, we can talk about what we have and how it helps others, or maybe how technology hinders others. So as you're going through, you can show a video such as this one that's talking about building a 3D house, by 3D printing a house. So becomes another great conversation starter. A good conversation could be had about this design and where it can be helpful, and what's the cost of this versus traditional builds, and you can really bring in some new technologies and talk about the impacts that they have on accessibility. Another great video to show is this one from Soul Pancake. This one is going to help you see, the impacts of technology. And this one is just doing it through a quiz bowl, and you can see the difference of how the teams do based on what they have access to. And then finally, there's career paths. And here you can really spend some time talking about some of the new technologies or the new needs in our global society as far as careers. If you have Nearpod, you can bring in any of their career exploration activities. You can go out to Amazon, and they have the Future Engineer program. Right now they have a scholarship program. If you go into their scholarships and internships, there's lots of opportunities for our high schoolers. They do have some great computer science courses and some real world exploration that can really help you think about the impact of technology. So just wanted to give you some different ideas as far as what it could look like. This final one here is going to be a PDF that you can use. That's an interactive PDF just from information from Google Arts and Culture. And then finally, there are vocabulary videos that you can use right within Nearpod if that is something that you have access to. This one happens to be about Katherine Johnson, but there's definitely some different ones about different career paths. So take some time and go through the student-paced lesson a little fast. I went a little fast, obviously, but I'm looking for you to spend some time diving into it a little bit deeper. You'll also see on here that there's some more resources that are also going to be in the Canvas account. There are these books that I put together that you're welcome to take a peek at, that's going to show some different ways that the standards can look in your classroom. So you can click on any of the books based on your grade band. You can open up the book, go to Impacts of Computing. You'll see the state examples, and then beyond that, you're going to see examples from educators just like us that have donated or thought about different activities that could work for these standards. You're able to take a peek at this book and get some ideas for your classroom. And then finally, there is a Padlet that is going to be connected. You'll see that it's been one that's been in use for quite some time with lots of ideas on it. You'll be able to add your ideas to this as well as a way to think about and crowdsource different activities for your classroom.